from punk rocker to Shakespearean actress, distinctive-sounding singer to religious programs presenter, Toyah Willcox has had a surprisingly varied career. Toyah was born in 1958, the same year that Cliff had his first hit with Move It, and Jerry Lee Lewis shocked the world with his revelation that his new wife was in fact his 13-year-old cousin. Born into a middle-class family in Birmingham, Toyah had a difficult start in life.
When the midwife delivered me, apparently the first thing my mother said is everything there? And the midwife said, yes, but, because the right side had developed and the left hadn't, so it was just overdeveloped. I had longer legs, longer arms, clawed feet, so everything was turning in like that. But it was relatively, and a twisted spine, but relatively easy to deal with. I apparently went into plaster for 6 weeks. That was to set the spine and the legs. And then when all that came off, it hadn't worked. So it started 10 years of physiotherapy, which my mother was taught to give me.
It's quite amazing to hear somebody describe themselves as non-perfect. I think most people don't even have to grapple with the concept of whether they're perfect or not, they just are.
Well, I wasn't aware of it until I went to school, and then I became known as Hop Along because of the gait in how I walked, and also because my speech impediment was very, very bad then. I could hardly speak at all, and apparently my tongue used to hang out of my mouth, which was comical. So people were very, very cruel, and it was only when I was with other children that I was aware of my imperfections. Otherwise, I was quite happy.
What you are is a little kid who, as you say, is not quite perfect, and of course you were, as I suppose could have only been expected, quite badly bullied at school.
I was badly bullied, but I was an incredible tomboy. I've always loathed being a girl, and my fight against gender started very early. So at school I was incredibly boisterous, and I was always breaking bones. I was always smashing my teeth. I can remember at the age of 5 climbing a climbing frame in pouring rain, mud below me, and tight rope walking this climbing frame. I came off it, smashed my nose, smashed my teeth, and then started to play with the blood. I really was a very weird kid, and I think even though people bullied me, they were slightly wary of me.
Even at a tender age, Toyah was starting to rebel against society's views of what the future held for her as a woman.
I was brought up in a time when women had expectations about their future forced upon them, and I loathed every angle of those expectations. Marriage, children, if you were lucky you could be a secretary, or you may go to university and be a doctor, but you would retire and have children, and you would settle down and you'd run the house. I'd rather be dead than have any of those things.
1970, Paul McCartney left the Beatles to go solo, and the play O Calcutta was banned from London theatres because of its explicit nude scenes. It was the same year that Toyah's mother was taken into hospital with a serious illness.
It was my 12th birthday. I got out of bed and no one could find her. She wasn't in the house, which was completely unusual because she always drove me to school, otherwise I wouldn't go, and she always made us breakfast, and she disappeared, couldn't find her.
Toyah's mother feared that she was dying and didn't want the children to see her in such pain.
I got a phone call at the school. The headmistress called me into the office to tell me that my mother was possibly going to die. She'd been found hiding under my brother's bed where her bladder had burst because of a gallstone. Imagine the pain. So I wasn't allowed to visit her, even though I was told that she was dying. And within the month or 2 months she was away, I changed. I changed radically. By the time my mother got back, she was unrecognizable. She'd probably gone down to about 6.5 stone. Clothes were just hanging off her. And I walked into the house and Dad came out the kitchen. He said, "There's someone here to see you." And Mum walked out and I really, really wanted to hug her. And I didn't. And that was the end of our relationship for a long, long time.
Have you hugged her since? No. Why not?
Not a hugging family. There's big barriers. But we know we love each other.
So at this point, punk arrives on the scene. And for you, it must have been a gift from heaven, because it must have been all you were looking for in some kind of rebellious expression, mustn't it?
It was fantastic because the first time in the world I realised I wasn't alone. I went to a club, I went to Bogart's, I heard, this was in Birmingham, and I heard that the Sex Pistols were playing. I thought, never heard of them, but I'll go anyway. And I walked into this club, and there were 300 people in this club that all looked like me.
And how did you look at the time?
I had black hair, but I had green and yellow at the front, and the back was all yellow. So I was very punky, and I was dressing in dustbin liners, and I had a little kind of Andy Pandy suit that I bought from Bieber's, which I dyed black, and I was wearing that. And up until this point, I'd be laughed at in the streets, buses wouldn't stop for me, and taxis wouldn't take me home.
Explain the appeal of something which is so, on the face of it, unattractive and repellent.
I disagree.
Kind of unappealing.
I thought I looked really beautiful.
Oh, you thought you looked gorgeous?
Yeah,
like that?
I thought it was the best way I could look. And up until that point, I'd always wanted to look different because I felt different. And my expression of punk was, I wanted to show how I was feeling internally, that I didn't feel part of the norm. I didn't feel part of everyday life. So I wanted to express it. And this gave me license to do it. And I did it with a vengeance. And I felt extraordinarily beautiful. And what I liked about this was it made the kind of gender statement that I've been desperate to make all the time. And that was, I am not a woman, I am not a man, I am a person. And it worked.
It's around this time in your teens that you become involved with the Old Rep Theatre, and do you start thinking, I want to be an actress yet? Have you sort of voiced that thought?
I knew I wanted to act and sing when the first time I saw The Sound of Music with Julie Andrews running up that hill in that opening sequence. When I started the Birmingham Rep Theatre School, I was 14. I started going Friday evenings for my dancing lessons, Saturday morning for drama. I knew exactly what I wanted by then, and I wouldn't be swayed. And even a visit to the careers officer when I was 15, and I sat down in the office, and she said, what do you want to be? And I said, I'm going to be an actress, and I'm going to be a singer. And she said, yes, of course, dear, and put some leaflets about nursing in front of me. I just left the room, and I said, just remember my name, because one day everyone will know it.
In 1975, roller mania swept the country. And a new television program, Jim'll Fix It, made dreams come true for hundreds of children. Toyah left school with 1 O-level and started full-time at drama school. And she soon got a job as a dresser to actress Sylvia Sims.
I loved it. I'm very good at being subservient in a perverse sort of way. And as soon as I walked into Sylvia Sims' dressing room on the Monday, she was on tour, she arrived at the theatre, the Alexandra Theatre in Birmingham, and I walked in and I said, is there anything I can do for you, Miss Sims? And she said, oh, I'm starving. So I went off and got her a sandwich, and I said, when do you like your cup of tea and how do you like it? So she always had a cup of tea at the beginning of the show, in the middle of the show, and then at the end. And it was absolutely fine, because I had the privilege of standing in the wings watching her work, which taught me more than any theatre school could ever teach me. And I loved dressing. I dressed Simon Williams, Sylvia Sims, the whole of Dad's Army, which was a difficult experience because I was madly in love with Ian Lavender, who would not wear clothes when I was in his dressing room. So that was my first experience of lust.
And there must have been something remarkable about you. I mean, obviously there is, because you were a dresser and suddenly you're kind of discovered. Somebody sees you and realises that you're not just going to be a dresser, you're going to be an actress.
I was earning my way through, paying my way through drama school by dressing and also doing extra work. And my very first day's extra work at Pebble Mill, BBC, earned me £12. And it was on a retro play about a 1950s rock band with Kate Nelligan starring in, and all I had to do was sit at a cafe table watching the band. But little did I realise that everyone was watching me, and I was getting all the close-ups in this scene even though I didn't have to talk. So the next day I get a call at the theatre school from a director who'd heard about me and wanted to meet me. He was called Nick Becat, and he was trying to cast a young girl in a story In a play, the story was this young girl wanted to appear on Top of the Pops so badly she breaks into the studio. So Nick came to the drama school to see me, and that was it. I got the part, a lead in a play.
Just like that?
Just like that.
And at the drama school they kept saying, no, audition all the others.
No, they refused to tell Nick who I was, and they refused to let him see me singly because I wasn't the best student. And so Nick came, he knew who I was immediately. He said I just stood out in the crowd. And I went down to London and auditioned, but he just knew I'd got the part.
You must have been young once. Did you always want to be a DJ? Or did you start off wanting to be something else? Andy Williams?
Oh, come on, I'm not that old.
I want to be so famous that I'm a household name all over the world.
While I was looking in the mirror to see what I could see, I saw somebody drowning. Could it be the real me?
And a wonderful irony from this was that when it showed on telly 3 months later, Kate Nelligan was watching it, not knowing who I was and that I'd been an extra that day in her play. And she said to Maximilian Schell, who was directing at the National Theatre, that girl has to be in our play. So I was called down to the National Theatre and joined the company. I was the youngest member of the National Theatre Company in 1976.
Offers of work flowed thick and fast for Toyah. Derek Jarman cast her in the role of Mad, a pyromaniac in his punk film Jubilee. And in sharp contrast, she worked opposite Katharine Hepburn in the film The Corn is Green. In 1979, the first Sony Walkman was launched, and the small, colourful Rubik Cube became a worldwide craze. It was the year that Toyah played the part of Monkey in the film Quadrophenia, and on television, the part of Sal.
When I got Quatermass, I was finishing off Quadrophenia, so I was night shooting Quadrophenia and day shooting Quatermass. So I actually got pneumonia halfway through that. Sir John Mills was in it, and I was playing this kind of tribal love child who was wanting to go to another planet in a spaceship.
Leave me be!
My baby's hungry!
Lift it up and let him see it.
Oh. What are you doing? No!
Despite her success as an actress, what Toyah really wanted was to be famous for her music. She formed a band, but the rock and roll lifestyle took its toll on her health.
Feeling good today.
I'd formed a band, and I realised that if I wasn't sexually attractive to the audience, I wasn't going to be doing the band any favours.
Through your teens, you did balloon and get quite a podge.
Yeah. When I was 20, I was a good 3 stone heavier than I am now. Purely, I think, because I was lonely. Therefore, rather than doing what normal people do at night, I was eating.
And was it an effort to lose weight,
Yeah.
ultimately?
I started taking diet pills, but I was taking them recreationally. You could buy them in the bags and just, you know, pop them away. And it would mean I'd go, on average, 3 days without eating, have a meal, 3 days without eating, have a meal. Why I'm still alive, I think, is a miracle, because I was taking about 5 of these really strong amphetamines a day and not sleeping, drinking an awful lot of alcohol to try and come down from it. And I went from being about 11.5 stone, and I'm only 5 foot tall, to being 7 stone. I was just a person of extremes, and I do have an addictive nature. I like my habits. I like extremes. I like danger. I'm a real adrenaline junkie. So the whole attraction of popping amphetamines and frightening the living daylight out of people, because I used to do the most stupid things like climb roofs, climb cranes, steal cars. I really mad time in my life.
In 1981, arcades around the country welcomed Pac-Man, and Wimbledon champion John McEnroe shocked centre court with his outbursts.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious! That ball was on the line!
For Toyah, it was the year that propelled her to stardom with her first hit, It's a Mystery. finally her childhood dream became a reality.
Suspended in the atmosphere, waiting to come through.
It's just heaven. I was in the bath the day before, just lounging in the bath at midday, and the phone rang, and it was the record company, and they're saying, "You're on Top of the Pops tomorrow." And I said, "How? Why?" And they said, "It's a Mystery has gone straight into the top 40. I said, "No," because I hated It's a Mystery. I thought it was the worst song I'd ever recorded. And they said, "No, it's true." And when I turned up at BBC Wood Lane, oh, I was just so excited. I can't tell you how wonderful it was. And in retrospect, it was probably the most boring day of my life. You just sit around in a dressing room all day and then do your song.
It's a mystery, oh, it's a mystery. I'm still searching for a clue. It's a mystery to me. A shot in the dark, the big question mark. In history, is it a mystery?
Everything I was bullied about, every time everyone ridiculed me for saying I wanted to sing, here I had the flag and I was putting it on top of Everest for the first time. It was fantastic.
1983, and time for a swatch to introduce a range of cheap and cheerful watches. The film Gandhi won 8 Oscars and its hero was immortalized in wax. For Toyah, things went from strength to strength. Her music career was booming and her fame began to escalate.
It's a Mystery moved me into the next league, which was commercial success and being an international name and not being able to drive down any road without seeing my face, posters with my face on in every shop window.
Just when she thought it couldn't get any better, she was offered a part alongside Sir Laurence Olivier in a TV drama.
I wasn't in awe of working with Laurence Olivier because I'd worked with Katharine Hepburn so many years earlier, and I knew what to expect. That generation of actors has an etiquette that you must keep to. You either call them Sir or Madame or Lord Olivier. And with Lord Olivier, we just sat and talked hour upon hour about when he formed the National Theatre, when he worked with Marilyn Monroe, when he met Joan Plowright, when he married Vivian Leigh. We got on incredibly well, and as for working with him, the hardest thing was that he and Katharine Hepburn worked at a different pace, and modern style of acting is much more natural, it's much more quicker, it's much more throwaway. So you had to just bear in mind that you were making those two generations meet. But it was a really fabulous film to work on. We were treated like stars.
Toyah had to strip off completely for some of the scenes.
As I was maturing, I wanted to be a sexier person. So part of me really wanted to do those naked scenes, yet the rest of me was aware that I was kind of kneeling, therefore my breasts weren't going to be seen from the best point of view and my thighs weren't going to look good. So it was worrying, and I starved myself for 2 months to do those scenes. But once you're actually doing it and your director is actually kindly stripped off to be naked with you, there is a kind of enjoyment about it.
In 1985, Oxford University refused Margaret Thatcher an honorary degree because of her education policies. Compact discs looked set to replace vinyl records, and at a charity lunch, Princess Michael of Kent introduced Toyah to a rock guitarist, Robert Fripp, from the band King Crimson.
He approached me to do a charity album with him. So I moved down to his studio in his house near Bournemouth and worked with him, and within a week he proposed.
What made you say yes to him so very quickly?
He is the most extraordinary human being I've ever known. He's kind, spiritual, super intelligent, and does not manipulate you in any way through fear or intellectualism. He's straight down the line. He's truthful to the point of hurting, but you can't help but admire someone like that. And I knew as soon as I met him that this was someone that I could take that journey with, where you grow, where everything is an event. And I thought this will make a really good marriage.
And on This Is Your Life, Toyah's husband made his feelings for her extremely clear after hearing Freedom, the track they wrote together.
And Robert, that music really did